All right. Good morning, men. It's Ian here, One Heart Steady Flow. And just coming with a video, a very raw and transparent video again. Uh, Trying really, really hard to not script these kind of things and just speak from my heart and my own experiences and just surrendering and being open and available for God to work through me here. And what a season. It's capturing the trials, the many kinds of trials that James talks about, and developing faith through perseverance. And it is very difficult. Today, I wanted to kind of shift directions a little bit and talk about something that is an area that I am very intimately familiar with, and it's addiction. Addiction comes in so many different forms and shapes. It's not just substances. I mean, it's chasing the wind, right? As it's pointed out in Ecclesiastes. And I've done this. I've done this my entire life. And I feel like the addiction part of it is something that it's been numbing. It's been not wanting to face the pain of the lessons and the things that God has been trying to show me. And as I've numbed more, I don't learn lessons. So here I am, going through the wilderness for these 40 years, right? As in Deuteronomy 8:2. Basically, God has led me through the wilderness all these years to test me, to humble me, to see what was in my heart, to know whether or not I would keep his commands. And I haven't kept his commands. I've done so many things on my own accord. I've made things worse for myself, just burying many, many things from my past, from the earliest of ages in my childhood. And the thing that I'm really facing right now that has really shown up in a failing marriage, just kind of really at a very strange state of 30 plus years of marriage that for all intents and purposes, it's coming to a close, at least the relationship that I know and that we know. And it's still a work in progress, and I don't know what's going to happen from this. But I'm being faced with years of deception and lies, and kind of trying to trace back and understand where that comes from. And First Peter 1:14-16, it's talked about being as obedient children. Do not be conformed to the former lusts which were yours in ignorance. And I do look back at myself, and I try to understand why I made the choices and the decisions that I made through the course of my life. And I was ignorant. And to be honest, I'm going to be ignorant at various levels and stages all through my life. And that is being humble and knowing that I don't have it all figured out, that I'm going to learn something new. It's going to open up something else. And my level of ignorance might not be as much as it was back 40, 50 years ago. So I'm faced with this whole thing right now of honesty, right, and truth. And just in full transparency, I mean, I've been horrible with this. I have tried to understand, why I've had so much deception in my marriage, just not wanting to face the things that, that have been buried, for decades. And I really feel like this marriage, the people that are around us, maybe the ones that are closest to us, are mirrors, to us, and the things that we hold in our hearts that God is trying to transform and lessen the hardening of our own hearts. And so here I am, kind of studying these things, as I have full disclosure with my wife on things that I've held for many years. It's creating a lot of different emotions, and I've quite honestly been scared of the emotions. I've been scared of uh, facing them, just tracing it backwards and understanding kind of where this came from. And so I'm gonna a couple of key things that I came up with, and I'm trying to understand how to have empathy more, for a betrayed partner. And it's quite interesting to me that in these moments when we have discussions that, I seem to be doing okay with this. And then I start to have anger, right? Anger shows up, and I get frustrated. And what I've really traced this back to is kind of a bitterness of not really understanding things when I was a kid. I didn't have, you know, an ideal environment to really learn things, and I I learned very quickly that telling the truth can create harm. Um, so I had a couple of moments. When I was 8 years old, I saw two kids in a fairly kind of rough neighborhood that I lived in, and I saw two neighbor kids, one kid that I knew, an older kid that was with him, setting a field on fire, and I saw him burning the field right behind our house, and they saw me. They saw that I saw them, and so that next day, I got a beat down, and uh, one of the younger kid was holding me, and the bigger kid was just wailing on me, and that sat with me. So ultimately, that was kind of the first experience that really kind of led me to think, hey, you know what? Truth is not such a good thing. Um, and then another instance was a girl that was a few years older than me, friends with her, and um, our families were friends, and something happened at school this one day, and I was standing in the doorway with her the next day, and her father's there asking her some things about school, and I she was telling a story that was not true. It was completely the opposite, and this unfiltered mouth from an 8-year-old kid, kind of says, "Hey, that's not the truth. Uh, that's not the truth." And uh, that unfortunately that little girl got beat. And I didn't realize I'd been holding this thing for so long. Um, the very next day, this girl took out a Louisville Slugger bat and hit me over the head with it, and um, luckily it didn't smash my skull. Um, and then in a very short period of time, her father passed away, and they moved away, and I never saw her again. So just two experiences in my life that just kind of made me feel that the truth is going to create destruction. And I have had uh, kind of this evolution of just one thing after another, really starting with alcohol and being presented with alcohol by somebody who I trusted, and kind of glamorizing it, and it became the thing, and it spilled over into nicotine. It spilled over into sex. It spilled over into lust. It spilled over into marijuana. It spilled over into using imagery for self gratification purposes. And it just has been decades and decades of chasing many things to cover this pain. Um, and ultimately, I was that little kid who buried it in the backyard. I took the shovel out and I buried it. Wasn't ever going to face it. And my wife being the mirror to me, to learn in this season of my life, it is really important to have disclosure on these things. Just for myself to understand these patterns, for myself to heal, and for my wife to heal too. And I said, I don't know entirely what's going to happen with this. I mean, it's a lot of the things that are going on is, the things in James 1, 2 through 4, consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds. And boy, have I just, the pain of the tests over and over and over again. Everything is an act of surrender, and it is surrendering to God, and just loosening control, letting God work in our hearts, testing our hearts every single day, every moment of every day, to understand what we hold there. And as Jesus was tested by the Pharisees to uh, describe what commandment is the greatest, and Jesus was brilliant in this, and didn't give them the expected answer, and he comes to the point where he's um, saying, to love thy neighbor as thyself. And really the first relationship that we have to have that I'm realizing is this relationship with myself, to create healthy attachments to myself first. To understand how, um, how I've kind of slipped over into this putting people above God. I've put my own wife above God and her emotions and being terrified of her emotions. And I think God has been trying to show me this over and over and over and over again in my life. And so here I am, just uh, sitting with this daily. These things of ignorance of working to forgive this little kid. This little kid who didn't really have a roadmap, on what to do. I don't call this out as a poor me routine, at all. This is really about studying myself and studying kind of where I came from and why things kind of happened the way they happen. And um, so these former lusts, I mean, they're not all sexual in nature. I mean, it's craving escape, control. Control is a big one. Validation. I have honestly sought approval in many ways, shapes, and form from others, and knowing just kind of when I didn't get that from people, because as humans we're going to let each other down at times. We're going to betray one another. We're not going to get what we need from other people, and ultimately when I wasn't getting what I needed, I turned to substances, and it just kind of just fed off of one another. In Romans 8:5-6, I mean, Paul is basically calling out that, for those who live according to the flesh, and I don't have this verse memorized just yet. I'm trying to capture these daily and memorize them more and more. But flesh set according to the flesh, set their minds on things of the flesh. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. And so, the addiction is basically training us to focus inward on escape. How do I feel? How do I escape? How do I control this pain? Flesh constantly seeks immediate relief, and it's bolstered by our society of immediate relief, immediate gratification. We have everything at our fingertips, and it's quite dangerous. We want these. The flesh wants the shortcuts all the time, and God develops character through this process. And I know in this season of my life that I am being called to be slow and steady. Everything in my body is screaming, run fast, blanket the market out there, get applications out there, do. And I have done that way too long in my life, to the point where I've missed things. I've missed things over and over and over and over again. And when I have a failure, I ultimately turn back to things to numb myself out, and the cycle repeats. And shame is such a hard thing because we get stuck in the loop and shame loops, and it's where the isolation comes from, is because we're in shame, and we ultimately don't want to be around other people because we know what we've been doing. So really, I mean, it's being still and knowing that I am God. I mean, I repeat this over and over and over again in my own heart. Be still and know. Be still and know. Know that God is here. God has the ultimate power. His strength is made perfect in our weakness if we navigate through our weaknesses, admit our weaknesses. And so this season of my life, I'm done with running. I'm done with masks. I'm done with chasing things, striving for trophies, right? Trophies that fade. And this is deep work. It's excavation of digging up all those deep things that were buried in all of the yards of my childhood. And it's about transformation. And it's never perfection. It's slow and steady. It's staying obedient. This video is a great example. I mean, I am smack dab in the middle of a lot of pain, just the fallout from my own betrayals of my wife. And it's very, very tense. And so everything in me is saying, nah, don't create this video today, man, don't do it. The enemy is lying to me and telling me that, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to be here. I'm not worthy to do these things. Who are you? I mean, you're a liar. you name it. I mean, it's all the same. It's the same cycle, and so this is the best time to do this, to get here in front of you all, to be vulnerable, to be transparent, to be raw. I have many afflictions, many thorns. Comparison is a big one. I watch others. I watch different uh, YouTube channels that have 65,000 viewers, and I see it polished. And not to take anything away from these people, at some point I will have maybe a little bit of flashiness, some things on there, the visuals that will ultimately help people to bolster and learn some things. But right now, it's just really important to just do this right here. Sit in front of you, to be vulnerable, to be transparent, to tell a little bit of my story and what's happening, because God is at work, and this is how we reach others, to know from our own testimonies, to be able to connect with others, to allow God to work through us, to be able to uh, help others lessen their own hearts, to focus on their hearts, to pull people to God, to be open and available for Jesus for God to work through us, to love ourselves, to do the deep work, the excavation, to look back at our own lives and see, really what's been hardening our hearts. Just what is holding up all of these addictions, my striving, my competitor nature, running the wrong race, seeking trophies and validation, and spilling over into substances, and objectifying women, and just the lust. I mean, wow, lots of lessons learned. And I just, once again, this is not about me. I feel just extremely called to start this kind of thing, to keep doing this, to get out there for others, for guys. Being, guys, it's tough. In a culture that really values the exterior, lust is always going to be a problem. Um, the fast nature of quick fixes. I mean, it's always going to be a challenge for us. And so I want to strengthen myself as I do these. I want to learn more about myself. I do this, learn more about God as I do this, allow God to work through me, to just be vulnerable, to put these videos out there, and allow others to find, some nuggets through these things too, where we strengthen each other, iron sharpening iron, and all for the greater good of God's kingdom, to bring more and more people to this place of being saved, and increasing the kingdom, increasing love. Love, love is everything. Love others because He loved us first. Yeah. So this is Ian, just being raw, being vulnerable, calling it out, and just being humble here. So I sincerely hope and pray that anybody watching this feels just a little bit more softened in their own hearts, encouraged to be able to study themselves and their patterns, and some legacy things that maybe have been passed down that we don't know about. To find peace, lasting peace. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And we have to put these things at Jesus' feet, and just do the deep work. As hard as it is, as hard as the pain is, we have to connect with what God is preparing us for in this life, with the pain that we're facing. And so this is Ian here. I am going to post a writing out there. I will post a link in here as well. And just in closing, I pray for anybody watching this, that we learn to release control. We surrender more. That we ask God to search our hearts for any offending ways, to help us to walk on this everlasting path, to lessen our hearts, to slow what prompts us to rush our hearts, and heal what hardens it, and help us to release the need to force outcomes here, and to receive your grace, Father, to remain faithful because you are faithful to us. And yeah, that's right. Well, God bless you all, and have a wonderful weekend. And I will see you on the next video.